All right, so today we're going to take a deep dive into a really heartwarming story about healthcare. It's about the power of small gestures. And we've got this really interesting collection of documents for this one. A letter from a patient, some certificates of honor, and also some background info about Valley Health. That's the hospital involved, and this organization called All American Center, Inc.
It sounds like we've got a patient who really went above and beyond to express his gratitude. I'm curious to find out what made his experience so special. What prompted him to do all this?
Yeah, definitely. Well, to start, um, Valley Health is a nonprofit health system, and they serve a really big area, parts of Virginia, West Virginia, and they even go into Maryland, and they seem to be very committed to giving quality care. Their website talks a lot about patient-centered care and
Mhm.
community engagement. And get this, they've received consecutive A grades for patient safety from the Leapfrog Group.
Consecutive A grades. Wow, that's not easy to do. The Leapfrog Group is a national organization, and they evaluate hospitals like on a ton of different measures, over 30 measures of patient safety. So to keep getting top marks like that, it really means they're dedicated to doing things right. They're putting a lot of effort into their patients' well-being.
Now, the patient at the center of this story, his name is Kenneth Cook. He was admitted to Winchester Medical Center, which is part of Valley Health, for 4 days back in December 2024. And he was admitted with AKI, which is acute kidney injury.
Oh, yeah, AKI. That's a pretty serious condition. It's where your kidneys suddenly can't filter waste from your blood. It can be really dangerous, even life-threatening, and it usually requires a hospital stay. So Kenneth was going through a lot, medically speaking.
Yeah, he definitely was. But what's really incredible is that even though he was dealing with all that, he was so impressed by the care he got that he decided to nominate the entire hospital staff for this Hero Certificate of Honor.
Wow, he nominated them for an award, not just like a thank you card or something. That's pretty impressive. Tell me more about this award. Where did it come from?
So the award is from All American Center, Inc., or AACI. And here's the really interesting part. Not only did the hospital as a whole get this recognition, but individual certificates were actually given to every single person who worked with Kenneth. It's like every doctor, every nurse, every CNA, and even the case manager.
Hold on, so everyone on the team got their own certificate? Wow, that's amazing. That really shows how much of an impact they had on him. It really makes you wonder what they did to create such a positive experience for him.
Right, and that's what we're going to try to figure out as we dig deeper into Kenneth's letter and the details of what happened during his stay. But before we get to that, I think it's worth talking a little bit more about ACI, All American Center, Inc. It's a nonprofit organization. They're an educational training center, and they've got this long history of doing good work in the community, especially helping underprivileged children.
Sounds like they're really dedicated to helping those in need. I guess giving out these hero certificates is one way for them to recognize people who do the same kind of work, that same spirit of service, even if it's in a healthcare setting.
And from what we've been able to find out, these hero awards, they're not just given to anyone.
Hmm.
ACI seems to be pretty careful about who they choose, so this is a really big deal for Valley Health.
Absolutely. It really says a lot about the quality of care that Kenneth received and just how dedicated the whole staff is. So let's get to the heart of the matter here. What exactly was it about Kenneth's experience that moved him so much? Was it just the medical treatment he got, or was there something more to it?
Well, looking at his letter, it seems like it was more than just the medical stuff, the clinical aspects of his
Mm.
care. He actually talks about these small things that made a really big difference for him while he was there. For example, he mentions that the nurses always took the time to answer his question, like really thoroughly, and they would even stop by just to chat with him, even when they were really busy.
Those things might seem small, but when you think about it, being in a hospital bed can be scary. You're hooked up to machines, you've got all these people you don't know coming and going and procedures and everything. It can be really confusing and make you feel anxious. But if the healthcare professionals are patient, if they take the time to answer all your questions, even if you're repeating yourself or asking things that seem obvious, it can make a big difference. It can help you feel less scared and unsure about everything.
So it's about making the patient feel like they have some control in a situation where they probably feel like they don't have much control at all.
Exactly, that sense of being informed and involved, like you're part of the process. It can make a huge difference in how you feel overall. It builds trust, it reduces stress, and it helps you feel more like you're actively participating in your own recovery instead of just being someone that things are being done to.
Kenneth also mentions that the nurses would stop by just to chat, even when they were super busy. Do you think that kind of interaction is important? That personal connection is that crucial to a positive experience for the patient?
I think it's absolutely crucial. It's about humanizing the whole experience. It's about seeing the patient as a real person, someone with thoughts and feelings and worries, not just someone with a medical condition. Even just a few minutes of real conversation can go a long way in building a connection, creating a rapport, and just making the whole environment more supportive and empathetic.
Yeah, it's like they're saying, hey, we see you, we hear you, and we care about you as a person, not just a patient.
That's exactly it. And those little moments of connection, they might seem insignificant at the time, but they can really make a difference. They can contribute to a much more positive experience overall. It's about acknowledging the emotional side of things. The things that come along with being sick, not just focusing on treating the physical symptoms.
And remember, he also talked about how the nurses would even stop by at the end of their shifts before they went home to their own families. That really meant a lot to him. Like they were going above and beyond, extending their care beyond just the medical stuff and really taking a personal interest in his well-being.
Yeah, it's a really powerful observation. It shows just how dedicated and empathetic those nurses were. They weren't just there to do their jobs and go home. They genuinely wanted to make him feel comfortable and supported. It reminds us that real healthcare, it's not just about having medical knowledge, it's also about empathy, kindness, and really wanting to make a difference in people's lives.
It's easy to get caught up in all the technical aspects of healthcare, the diagnoses and treatments and procedures. But this story really highlights the importance of the human touch. Those simple acts of kindness that can really change a patient's experience. Those small things. They weren't just extras. They were a fundamental part of why he felt so good about the care he received.
You're absolutely right. We need to shift our thinking. It's not just about a purely clinical approach. It's about seeing the whole person, their physical needs, their emotional needs, their psychological needs. It's about recognizing that healthcare is not just about fixing what's broken. It's also about providing comfort and support and making people feel connected during a time when they're feeling vulnerable.
It's really interesting how these small things, like just taking a minute to answer someone's questions, can have such a big impact on how they feel. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's all about empowering the patient. Think about it. You're lying in a hospital bed hooked up to all these machines surrounded by strangers, and there are all these procedures going on that you don't understand. It can be a really overwhelming experience, but when healthcare professionals take the time to explain things clearly and answer your questions, even if they seem basic or you've asked them a million times already, it helps to calm those fears and make you feel less uncertain about everything.
So you're saying it's about giving the patient a sense of control in a situation where they probably feel like they have none.
Exactly, that feeling of control, that sense of being informed and knowing what's going on, it can really make a difference in their overall well-being. It helps build trust, it reduces stress, and it lets the patient feel like they're part of the process, an active participant in their own recovery, not just someone who's being treated.
Kenneth also specifically mentioned the nurses stopping by just to chat even on those really busy shifts. Do you think that kind of personal interaction is important? Just taking a few minutes to connect with a patient as a person? Is that crucial to a positive patient experience?
Absolutely. It's about humanizing the experience, recognizing the patient as an individual, someone with their own thoughts and feelings and concerns, not just a medical case. Even just a few minutes of genuine conversation can go a long way in establishing that connection, building rapport, and creating a more supportive and empathetic environment.
Yeah, it's like they're saying, we see you, we hear you, and we care about you as a person, not just as a patient.
Exactly. And those seemingly small moments of connection, they can really make a difference in the patient's overall experience. It's about acknowledging the emotional needs that often accompany physical illness, not just focusing on the physical symptoms.
And we can't forget about that detail he mentioned about the nurses stopping by at the end of their shifts, even before going home to their own families. That level of dedication really struck a chord with him.
It really speaks volumes about their commitment and compassion. They weren't just there to do their jobs and clock out. They were going above and beyond to provide comfort and support. It's a good reminder that true healthcare goes beyond just medical expertise. It also encompasses empathy, kindness, and a genuine desire to make a difference in people's lives.
It's easy to get caught up in the technical side of healthcare, all the diagnoses and treatments and procedures. But this story really highlights how important that human touch is. Those simple acts of kindness that can make all the difference in a patient's experience. Those small things weren't just incidental. They were a fundamental part of why he felt so good about the care he received.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's about shifting our perspective from a purely clinical model to one that recognizes the whole person, their physical, emotional, and psychological needs. It's about understanding that healthcare is not just about fixing what's broken, but also about providing comfort, support, and a sense of human connection during a time when people are feeling vulnerable.
Speaking of heroes, let's circle back to the organization that gave out these awards. We've talked a bit about All American Center, Inc., but it's worth highlighting the incredible work they do in the community. They seem to be really dedicated to supporting underprivileged children.
Yeah, their main focus is the Children's Fund, which they started back in 1989. It helps children with a whole range of needs, things like education, food, clothing, really anything they might need 24/7.
And they're also very active in the community, especially around the holidays. They've been hosting annual Christmas parties for disadvantaged families for over 25 years, sponsoring hundreds of children and their families each year.
It's quite a legacy of service and compassion, and the fact that they chose to honor Valley Health with these hero awards really says a lot about the hospital's commitment to going above and beyond.
It's fascinating how they're shining a light on the work that healthcare professionals do work that often goes unnoticed, especially during those tough times like we saw with the COVID pandemic. It's a reminder that these individuals are often putting their own well-being at risk to care for others.
And they do it with such incredible resilience and compassion. It's so important to acknowledge and appreciate the sacrifices they make and recognize the impact they have on their patients' lives. Kenneth's story is a powerful reminder that even in the midst of a health crisis, human connection and kindness can shine through.
It really makes you think about all the times you've been on the receiving end of that kind of kindness. Those moments when someone went out of their way to make your day a little brighter or lighten your load.
It's all about cultivating a culture of appreciation and gratitude, not just in healthcare, but in every aspect of life. We can all learn a valuable lesson from Kenneth Cook and the staff at Valley Health. Treat each other with kindness, empathy, and respect, and remember that even small gestures can make a world of difference.
It's amazing. Kenneth didn't just send a letter or nominate the staff for these awards. He actually went a step further and specifically asked for his letter and those certificates to be put in the staff's personnel files.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. It shows how much he wanted to make sure they got the recognition they deserve, not just like a pat on the back, but something that would be on their record, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. It makes you think, could those awards even affect their careers in a positive way, like maybe help them get promoted or get some special opportunities later on? He really went all out to show his appreciation.
It definitely adds a whole other layer to his gratitude, doesn't it? It's not just a feeling, it's a concrete thing that's going to be there in their files. It really shows how thankful he was and how much he understood that recognizing people's hard work can make a real difference, not just for morale, but maybe even for their careers in the long run.
This whole story really makes you stop and think about how often people in healthcare go above and beyond and don't get the recognition they deserve. It's a tough job, long hours, tough decisions, and you have to be so strong emotionally. It takes a lot out of you.
Oh, absolutely. People who choose to work in healthcare, they're often driven by a sense of purpose, a real desire to help others. But even heroes need a little encouragement now and then. It helps keep them going. It reaffirms their dedication to providing the best possible care.
Kenneth's story is a good reminder that we should never take for granted the impact of showing our appreciation, and not just in healthcare, but in every part of our lives. Recognizing and thanking those who make a difference, whether it's something big or small, can have a ripple effect that goes way beyond just that one moment.
I completely agree. It's about creating this culture of appreciation, as society where we make it a point to acknowledge and celebrate the people who make our lives better. What if Kennett's actions inspired others to do the same thing? What if we all started making an effort to recognize the unsung heroes around us?
Now, that's a thought-provoking idea. Imagine if everyone started thinking that way. It could transform our workplaces, our communities, even society as a whole.
Wouldn't that be something? A world where kindness and gratitude were just the normal way of doing things, where we all lift each other up and inspire each other to be our best selves. It might seem like a far-off dream, but it all starts with those small individual acts of appreciation.
Maybe this deep dive will be the thing that gets that ball rolling for some of our listeners. Maybe it'll inspire them to reach out and thank the healthcare heroes in their own lives, or even just pay it forward by doing something kind for someone else in their community.
That would be a wonderful way to honor Kenneth Cook and the amazing story we've been talking about today. Remember, even the smallest act of kindness can have a big impact. Never underestimate the power of a simple thank you.
Well said. It looks like we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of healthcare heroes.